Hi, this is Linda Tillman, and we're going to take some honey from this hive right here. It's a hive that I haven't been in a long time. I'm a big believer in not inspecting if you don't have a reason to inspect. And we're in the dearth, so this is not a time to inspect the bees. But because of some circumstances at my house, I wasn't able to take honey when I wanted to. And this hive is not going to have a lot of honey for me to take. This is a swarm that moved in while I was eating dinner one night. But it came early enough in the season that I think I can take a frame or two, which is what I would like. I'd like to see how their honey tastes. And before we do anything like that, though, we're going to watch the front of the hive and see what there is to learn. First of all, what we see are pretty peaceful bees. They're hanging out on the front of the hive. It hasn't gotten very hot yet. It's about 10:30 in the morning in Atlanta. And so they're hanging out on the front of the hive. Some of them are flying in and out. What we want to see, good thing that we see is that there's not any conflict going on. We also don't see dead bodies being brought out, but we do see some bees flying in. They will be bringing water and maybe some nectar that they were able to find somewhere. But this is the end of July. There goes a bee with pollen on her legs. When you see a bee with pollen on her legs, that's a pretty good sign that there's a brood in the hive that needs feeding, and that you probably have a laying queen. And so we're not going to worry a lot about this hive because the state of the front of it is so peaceful and nice. Nonetheless, where I typically don't wear gloves and just wear a veil, I am suiting up, at least wearing a jacket, a veil, and gloves today because I expect them to be mad for me to open them up at this time of year. Pollen is also sometimes dependent on the time of day. I saw lots and lots of pollen coming in yesterday, so I'm really not worried about this hive, but I would like for us to see pollen coming in on another bee. There's more pollen, just went in. When we'll see more pollen is toward the end of the day. I don't know what they're getting the pollen from, but it tends to be something that they're getting more toward the end of the day. I also want to say that this hive has two entrances, unintentionally, but it does have two entrances. The bees go in right down here where there's a rotted place on the slatted rack, and this has been true of the hive since they moved in, and I haven't wanted to change it. There isn't really a reason to, but next year I'll probably remove the rotted slatted rack and give them a new one. So I'm going to light the smoker. Typically during a harvest, you only light the smoker to put in front of the hive for defending you if you need it. Typically you don't light a smoker during a honey harvest because you don't want a smoky smell to get into your honey. But this time of year when the bees are angry and my coming into their hive is not going to be a welcome event, then lighting the smoker is a good idea. I never do anything with gloves. It's hard to do all of this with gloves. At least it's not hot as blue blazes yet. My knee is right at the level of that entrance, so I keep checking to see, are they disturbed? Are they coming at me? But they're not. Okay, since this is really the only hive we're looking at today, I'm going to stop there. Just enough smoke to make do. So hopefully our smoker will do well for a while. So now I want to get ready. I want to be very prepared for everything I do, just because when I've gone into hives in July, they hate me. And I don't want to be a recipient of the bees' anger, which is inevitable. So I would like to minimize it as much as possible. So I have ready my hive brush, which is what I need to get bees off of a frame that I'm going to harvest. I have a nuke box with empty frames in it that I can put in to take the place of any frames I take, if we take any frames. I'm hoping I do. And I've got hive drapes ready to go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is take the smoker and go smoke, smoke at the front door. Puff, puff. I'm going to go puff, puff at the front door to say the beekeeper is here. Danger, Will Robinson. Okay, puff, puff. See, that disturbed them a little. They're like, uh-oh, what's going to happen now? Okay, so let's see if we can find any honey to take. So first we take off the top, as we would normally do. Lots of bees on the top of the hive. And because it's the middle of July, end of July almost, I'm also going to smoke the top. One nice thing is I only see one small hive beetle. This is a hive that's in the shade. I hear some more small hive beetles on the back, but not a lot. I've heard people say they're seeing less small hive beetles this year. In terms of the amount I usually see, this is less. But I have killed about 8. I'm just smushing them with my hive tool. Okay, now we'll top the top. It's really propolized because I hadn't been in here in a while. Goodness, really propolized. Whew. Speaking of popping the top, sorry girls. Okay, so when we open the hive up and immediately see is an empty box. The only frame in this box, I'm going to show it to you in just a second, but I don't want them to get upset. The only frame in this box that has any comb in it is one that was in the box when I put it on the hive. I pulled it up from the box below. So you can see those are all empty. The only one that has anything in it is this comb, this frame, and it is the one I put on the box as a ladder when I put this box on the hive. And that's because I put this box on the hive at the end of the nectar flow. There wasn't anything coming in for them to be able to build a honeycomb with, so they didn't. Bees have to have nectar in order to build honeycomb. This is a sign of how long it's been since I've been in this hive, that it is really something to separate these boxes, or to separate the top from the box like I did a while ago. A lot of effort. There we go, I got the back end. Let's see if I can get the front end. Okay, let's see. There we go. Now see, there are no bees on the front now because they know that something's up, i.e. the beekeeper is here. Okay, here goes the top box off. Nothing in it. We really should just take it off of the hive. And this is the box. If we're going to take any honey, we're going to take it from here. And I think we may only take one frame. This is their third box. And as a result, they have honey in the second box. But whether they have honey that I can take in the third box or not is a question. And like I said, I might just take one frame. I want to see what it tastes like. And I think every new hive owner should get to taste one frame of honey from their hive if there's one available. The best bet looks like it might be the third frame in. And these are hooked together. We can look on the other side. They're not cross-combed, but they're hooked together in such a way that I've got to break honeycomb in order to take them out. Yeah, I'll do it from this side. And the bees are not happy with me. They're circling around and buzzing my head. I don't know if you can hear them in the microphone or not. They're like, really? What are you doing here? Now this one's pretty good. It's good on this side. It's not as well filled on the other side, but it would be a way to taste the honey out of this hive without taking too many of their supplies. So I'm going to consider this as one to take, and maybe the only one to take. Feels like it probably has about 4 pounds of honey on it, might be 3. So what we want to do is find some space and shake the bees off and brush the bees off of this frame. But before I do it, what I want to do is open up my box over here. Okay, now I'm ready. So I have my bee brush and my frame. The first thing I'm going to do is shake the bees into this area and then brush off what's left. So I'm shaking them, which they hate, and then I'm going to brush off the remaining bees that I see. And I'm going to walk away, and now I'm putting it in the nuke box. Right here, I just put it in the nuke box, and I'll put the top on it right away so that bees won't go into the nuke box where it is. And then before I put an empty frame in, I've got to decide, do I want to take one more frame of honey, which I might. Let me see what this one right next to it looks like. So they are so mad now that I'm going to smoke them a little. I'll spray smoke up here in the air. Say, leave me alone. I'm just stealing from you. Why should you be so upset? Clearly they are not happy. The secret to all beekeeping is being patient. Okay, now we're going to get this next frame. We're going to pull it up and see what it looks like. It's a beautiful frame, and we're definitely taking it. Here it is. It's got honey on both sides. Beautiful frame. So here we go. We're going to shake it into the box. And then we're going to brush the bees off of it, back into the box. And then we're going to go away from the hive and brush more bees off. I know you can't see me, but all I've done is step away where I'm not right behind inside the hive so that there are reinforcements to come. And I'm getting the bees off. There's one tiny little broken area of comb that has them all anxious, so there are bees on that, and I will take a couple of bees back in the house, I think. Maybe not. There are not any on it right now. So I'm going to put it in this box, and these are the only 2 frames we're taking from this hive. So now we have to repair to the best of our ability, because we're not going to give them back honey, but we have to repair the damage that we've done. And my preference is going to be, because I'm going to take this top box off, it's not being used, and there's no sense in their having to defend that box. So I'm going to take this frame of comb that was moved up to this box and pull it out. Well, I know you can hear me grunting and groaning, but it's not easy to pull this up. So I'm pulling this up. It has nothing on it but lots of bees. So I'm going to put it right back into this box so that they will have it. And then I'm going to take an empty frame from this box and also put it into the box in the space that we left. It won't help them any because it doesn't have drawn comb, but I don't have any drawn comb right now. So I'm going to put an empty frame in this box. Then we're going to put the hive back together and put the empty box that we're taking off in front of the hive. So that's done. We'll cover that up. We're going to get some smoke to help us out, because you can hear that they are really not happy. So we go smoke, 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 smoke. And what I'm going to do is take this box that we're taking off of the hive, and I'm going to set it. I'm going to give it a good shake over the hive so that a number of the bees can. And then I'm going to set it in front of the hive so that the rest of the bees can go back to the hive before the day is over. I'm going to give them just a second, and then we're going to put this back together. And then we will have harvested what we were going to harvest from this hive. They have much more honey in that box, but I would prefer to leave it for the winter so that they have enough. We'll put the top back on, almost in one motion, pulling the hive drape off and putting the top back on. And then we put the actual top back on. And that's that for harvesting this honey, and I'll take it inside and crush and strain it. So today I'm going to show you how to do a crush and strain honey harvest. I'm just harvesting 2 frames of honey. This is from a hive that I got from a swarm this year, so I didn't want to take more than 2 frames from the hive. So the first thing we're going to do, you can see this is a full frame of wax. It's beautiful. It's not as pretty on the second side, but it's a pretty good frame. The first thing we're going to do is to cut the wax off of the frame. I have to be left-handed. So I'm going to cut the wax off of the frame by slicing all the way down one side, and then I'm going to slice all the way down the other side, and watch out for my fingers on the other side. I think it will be easier for me on this one to use my right hand. So once I do that, I want to drop the wax into the pan. So I'm going to cut it in the middle so that the bottom section can just fall into the pan. And then the top also, there we go. And I want to make sure I get as much of this honey off of the frame as possible. So I'm continuing to cut the honey off of the frame, being careful not to let the knife slip and cut me. Okay, so all of that is there. I'm going to take this frame and just put it in a pan to drip. So here it goes. And now my job is going to be to crush this beautiful honey. And I'm going to be using a rubber spatula a good bit during this. I'm going to clean the knife off with the rubber spatula because I want the honey to go into my filters and not just go into the sink and be washed. So there's that. Okay, so this is what I use. I use a little pestle. I've just recently washed it. So you have to be sure everything that you're doing during this is completely dry because you don't want to get any water in your honey. So you want to make sure your pan is completely dry. I always dry it with a paper towel, not just my cloth towels, just to make sure there's not a single bit missing. And now I want to crush the cells of the honey really methodically and really well, because every time I break open a cell, that frees the honey to go into the filters to end up being honey that goes into jars that goes into my tummy and that of other people's. So I'm crushing the honey. This is my first round. I go across the honeycomb methodically and crush each section. And we'll move this kind of out of the way so that it can be done more on its own. And all I'm doing is crushing the honeycomb. It's really easy to do. It doesn't take a lot of strength or arm power or anything. But I'm crushing as much of it as I possibly can. Oops, I need to back you up a little bit more. I'm crushing as much of it as I can possibly do because I want every single cell that I can break open to be broken open so that the honey is free to flow. And by the same token, I'm going to go back where I was at the beginning and crush it some more, because there's some wax that's just going to get mashed as opposed to breaking open the honey cells. So I want to go back over everything again and make sure I've gotten every single bit of it. It's looking good though, and this is pretty honey. And this is from a hive that I hadn't harvested from before. And I'm interested in whether the honey is good honey. So I'm going to test it with my refractometer. So I'm going to take the refractometer and I'll put a little drop of honey. You just do it with your finger, but you don't have to do it with your finger. They have a little suction doojobby that you can use. And I'm going to hold it up to the light and see. It looks like the blue line is at a little less than 18. So now we're going to take our rubber spatula and clean off the crusher, the mallet I've been using. Now this filter bucket still has remnants of the last harvest. I didn't bother cleaning it because I'm only harvesting 2 frames and I didn't want to have to wait for days for the filter to be dry. You don't have to wait for days, but I would have had to wait till tomorrow. So now I'm going to push the honey with the rubber spatula out of this pan and into the filters. Here it goes. Beautiful honey. Yay. It doesn't have to be perfect because we have another frame to do, so I'm not worried about leaving a little bit still in the pan because we have another frame. After that, we want to get this pan as clean as possible. Again, I'm just crushing methodically. I want to get all of it crushed. And having gone through the whole thing now, I'm going to go back and work on it some more. And my goal in doing this is to free the honey from the walls of the cells so that it can flow through my filter. And every time I've got something like this, I want to look on both sides of it, and I'm going to crush the other side because it's not really falling apart. And I want to make sure that any honey that's in here is freed up to go through the filter system, which is what it gives us our payoff. So, okay, so now we'll clean off our pestle. And what works in a filter bucket is gravity. So it really doesn't matter like I'm wiping my spatula off on the wax because I know it will hold it, but I also know that gravity will in the end win. And we're going to pour the honey in again. Now this time I'm going to do the best I can to get this pan as free of any honey as possible because I don't want any left in the pan. There inevitably will be some, but I really want it to go into the filter bucket and get jarred for human beings to eat. Me being the main human being who's going to eat it. I don't have enough honey this year to sell to anybody, and I usually give a jar to each of my family members. This honey came from my backyard, so I will probably keep all of it, but my hives that are at my daughter's house, I split the honey 50-50 with her. Now using gravity, I'm going to push everything down here to the bottom and aim it for the corner. My children always hated it when I cooked brownies or something where they wanted to lick the pan because I was so thorough about getting everything out of the pan. So you can see that taking place here too. Look how much I got. So that's how you do crush and strain. I'll show you in a few minutes what we do with the bucket, the filter bucket. I want all of this honey to be part of the drip process. I'm going to take my rubber spatula and kind of make sure we use as much area of the filter as possible. It would do that on its own. If I didn't do it, it would sort itself out that way going outside. So here's the top. I'll put the top on the bucket. It won't go down because the 3 full filters are sitting in between. I didn't talk about the filters. The filters that you put in the honey bucket are 3. They are stacked one inside the other. The one on the top that the honey sits in is the coarsest filter, and there are 3 filters and they go from coarse to fine. So this one is 600 millimeters. The one below it is 400 millimeters, and the one below that is 200 millimeters. I think that's what the numbers are. So the finest filter is the 200 one, and the honey filters through all 3 of them before it goes into the big bucket. So now we're going to take the big bucket outside and I'll show you what's going to happen to it. Like most people in Atlanta, I live in an air-conditioned house, so it's be kind of cool in there for the honey to drip through. But out here in the sun will be great, so I'll put a brick on it to discourage any creatures from knocking it over, and I'll pull the handle up, which kind of helps with that also. I'll let it sit, and the honey will go through rather quickly, and by tomorrow we'll easily be able to bottle it. But even after tomorrow, if I let it sit a little bit longer, we'll get one more bottle of honey out of it. That happens every time. Hi everybody, this is Linda Tillman and we're here with my top bar hive. So what we're going to see is how the top bar hive is doing, and then we're going to go in and we're going to take at least one top bar of honey and harvest it, because this is a swarm that I got this year, so it's not a hive that should have a whole lot of excess honey for us to harvest, but you know, we're going to get a taste. I see bees with pollen on their legs already. I want you to watch and see if you see them. My regular hives, my Langstroth hives, all have slatted racks on them, and as a result I don't have huge beards. But this hive has been bearding every single afternoon because there's no way to give it extra ventilation. And so they have been having beards that drip off the bottom of the hive entry in the afternoon. So let's watch and see. I saw two bees go in. There's another one with pollen. And what we're noticing as we watch this is it's a pretty calm beginning front of the hive. They're not looking agitated or anything. There are two more bees with bright yellow pollen going in, and another one just went in. So when we see the bees with pollen going in, what we know is that there's probably a laying queen in there, and that makes us not worry. Let's see if we see any drones on the front of the hive. I'm looking. We should still see drones until September, but right this minute I'm not seeing one. But y'all look, here we go, here's a big old fat drone right there. That guy's a drone, and right beside him is another drone. There are two drones right there. Big old guys that are trying to decide that they want to go out and risk death today in order to mate with the queen, or maybe they've just come back unsuccessfully and are tired. But what happens to the drones is they go out every day and they fly to try to mate with the queen, and if they're successful, they die, and if they're unsuccessful, they come home hungry and the girls feed them. So that's the setup for those poor guys. And then when in a few weeks, at the end of August and September sometime, they get all thrown out of the hive and are done for, because there's no point in feeding drones during the winter. Lots of bees coming in with pollen on their legs. This looks like a really good hive. It looks like a hive that I would choose not to inspect. All I'm going to do today is harvest honey. So it's July and not a good time in Atlanta. We have a dearth, and it's not a good time to do anything else to the hive. Besides, it's not even a good time to harvest honey, but since I haven't harvested honey before, I want to show you how to harvest from a top bar hive. So now I have on a suit, and not a suit, I have on a jacket and a veil that zips, because I know bees are not happy at this time of year. And I'm going to put on, these are my best gloves. They're hard to get on, so I don't wear them when I have to rapidly put on a pair of gloves and my hands are already hot and sweaty. I usually throw on another more standard pair of beekeeping gloves. These are rose gloves. I got them at EAS, but you can get them on Amazon and anywhere else. They're really great gloves. They fit you much better if you're a woman than the beekeeping gloves that we typically buy, but they aren't easy to get on. You have to put them on like you're putting on leather gloves, the way old ladies used to do in the past to go to tea. So there's one on. Here we go. Okay, so I have a lit smoker, and I'm going to let the bees know I'm coming in. So I'm going to go puff puff and let them know that I'm here. But because I'm going to be working over here, I'm going to put the smoker nearer to where I am, because we are likely to need it. I'm going to put the frame rack down here at this end, so you'll be able to see what I see. There are a lot of cockroaches in here, which I'm not happy about, but you know, not much I can do. So you don't usually use a smoker if you're harvesting like in May or June. You might light it just to have it be prepared, but in terms of keeping it, making sure it's doing a great job, you don't do much of that, mostly because when you're using a top bar hive, you mostly don't use the smoker because you don't want smoke to get in your honey. So we're going to start back here at the back end by the follower board. I'm going to move one of these bars that's beyond the hive, so I truly don't understand what they're doing. This is past the follower board, which is beyond the end of the hive. And now we're going to see if we can move the follower board, which seems very propolized. So the first bar in the top bar hive they haven't used because, you know, it was beyond the nectar flow when I put it in. It was the end of the nectar flow and I didn't know whether they would need it or not. They didn't use the next one either, nor the next. Now here's a frame of honey. What I want to do is use a hive drape to try to keep things as calm as possible while I'm here. So I'll put the hive drape down, and now we're going to see about this frame of honey. I first want to use this is particularly for top bars, so I want to make sure that this frame does not include any honey that's been connected to the side of the hive, and it isn't connected on this side. Let's see about on this side. It may have had a slight connection on that side, but I have broken it if it did. And we're going to pull this out and see whether it looks like the one we should take or not. I'm feeling like it probably isn't. It's probably the next one that we should take, but let's look and see. Yeah, this is not completely filled with honey and still has some open nectar. But it's a pretty frame. It's very nice. It does have some open nectar on this side. Let's see if it does on that side. No, it doesn't. So on the back side it has some open nectar. This side it's filled, but it's not the one that we're going to harvest. We want a full frame of honey if we're going to harvest one, which the next one may be. So we'll go down the side of it and make sure we're not stuck to the side of the hive. Feels like they may be doing a little bit more of sticking to the side of the hive on the back end next to the hinge. And there's one small hive beetle. This hive is completely in the shade, so you would think they'd have a lot of small hive beetles, but this year has not been a terrible year for small hive beetles. I think before I pull that one out, I'm going to put this one back in. Oh, it's heavy. Ooh. You can see the open cells on that side of it. Now this is one we might harvest. It has honey throughout the cell. It looks pretty good. Throughout the honeycomb, it looks pretty good. It's true on both sides. It looks nice. It's capped all the way down to here on both sides of this honeycomb. So that's pretty nice, and maybe that would be one to take. So we're going to consider that, yes, we're going to take that one. Let me look at the one next to it. We might take two. They're not happy about my interference. And of course my smoker, which I'm not very good at, ever, has gone out. So I'm going to stop and light it. All right, in order to take this frame, what I have to do are two things. I have to brush the bees off of it, which you're about to see me do. They're not going to like this at all. Front and back. They're like, we're doing our job. Why are you doing this to us? Then I'm going to pick it up and carry it over here. So now you can see that bucket. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush some more bees off of this. Since I'm a little bit back from the hive, they're likely to go back to their hive. So I'm brushing more bees off. Go, 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 girls. I don't want to take you home with me. And now I'm going to take the honey and literally cut it and let it drop into this bucket. It drops into the bucket. I put the top on it so the bees can't get in it. And I'm going to take the drippy comb and put it back in the hive. I'm going to take one more comb of honey because that looked really pretty. And I think if I feel like I've taken too much, I can feed the bees. So that's also a gorgeous frame of honey. It's full all the way to the bottom. It couldn't be a prettier comb. So we're going to cover up again the opening in the hive, and I'm going to brush the girls off and do exactly what I just did. Here we go. I'm going to take this brush and get this off. So here we go. Go, bees. It's better to just do it definitively and not like you don't mean it. I can't really shake this one. You shake the combs in a Langstroth hive, but if you shake this comb, you're likely to break it off. So again, I'm gonna walk away from the hive. Now you can see the bucket. It's not really a bucket, it's my shrimp pot. And again, I'm just gonna cut it straight off into the shrimp pot. And that's all we're going to harvest from this hive. Isn't that easy? It's one of the nice things about a top bar hive. And you immediately put the frame back in the hive for the bees to clean up. So you don't have the problem of what do you do with the frame, with the top bar. So now I'm just going to put the hive back together. Move these two empty ones that they're mad about over closer together and pull the rest of these frames back where they belong. So hi, this is Linda Tillman, and now we're going to bottle the honey that we harvested yesterday. And the honey, it was only 2 frames of honey, and you can see the level of the honey in the bucket. It's below the honey gate, which means that there are going to be air bubbles in this honey. That's always true when you're bottling below the honey gate. If it's at the same height as the honey gate, if it's up here, usually when you harvest a full medium box of honey, you're going to get the bucket about 3/4 full with honey. And then the first bottles that you pour don't have any air bubbles in them, but this is going to have air bubbles in it. And this is a honey gate. I'm going to open the honey gate and guide the honey into the bottle. Here it goes. It's pouring into the bottle. I want it to get up to the bottom ring. It's not going to come as fast as it would come if the honey were higher in the bucket, but it's not. These are clean jars. I've washed them in the dishwasher and then put them back in the same box that they came in, so that they'd be an easy place to keep them. So you let the honey rise in the jar until it gets pretty up close to this ring, and then you close the honey gate. So I'm getting ready to close the honey gate, and I am now closing the honey gate. And I tested this honey, it was 18% moisture, which is great, because you want it to be at least 18.6, no wetter than 18.6. So you see how I moved that honey jar out of the way and put the other one straight in the place of it, so that if there were any drips, they would be caught by my jar and not just fall on the dish towel. And so now we go for the next one. Now because this is low, I'm going to be tilting the bucket. And then as we get closer to full, I'm going to slow it down a little bit. And we're done. That's all there is to bottling honey. Inside here, now that all this honey has been filtered through, it doesn't look anything like the slurry we put in it. There's still honey in there though. I mean, I can see it down here toward the bottom. See, there's honey in there. So if I let it sit for another day or two, we'll fill up the rest of this jar. But for now, this is what cleanup looks like. The bees are having a cocktail party provided by me of honey and more honey left in the shards from Prussian strain. And this will be just flaky like nothing by the end of the day. They will have cleaned it completely out. It's about 3:30 right now, and I would... This is sort of like a high school party. This is what it looks like now. It's been 2 hours, really. I thought they'd be done in an hour, but I'll finish it off pretty quickly now that everybody has come. This is like the parents are away, and all the kids have been invited to the party. So here is the honey comb, about 24 hours later. You'll see that it's just nothing, no bees are here because it has been cleaned up. It's kind of melting in this pan, so I'm gonna take it inside so that it can get hardened back up.